They called him the Hammer of God, until the night he chose the witch over his own soul. Eric's vein had burned 73 heretics without losing a night's sleep. 73 confessions, 73 pyres. Not one doubt. But the 74th was different. She didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't break. And when those gray eyes met his across chains and firelight, something inside the Empire's most feared Inquisitor cracked wide open. This is the story of how a man built to destroy mercy learned to bleed for it, and how a healer accused of forbidden magic didn't just survive her executioner. She turned him into a traitor. If you're ready to see how far loyalty can burn before it turns to ash, stay until the end. Drop a like, tell us what city you're watching from, and let's dive into the storm. The storm hit Blackthorn Citadel like God's own fist. Rain hammered the stone walls in sheets so thick you couldn't see 10 feet past the gates. Lightning cracked the sky into jagged pieces, and thunder rolled through the halls like cannon fire. The kind of night where smart men stayed inside and stupid ones got washed off the cliffs into the rocks below. Eric's vein wasn't smart. He was something worse. He was certain. He stood in the courtyard, rain plastering his dark hair to his skull, water running down the sharp planes of his face, and he didn't flinch, didn't hurry. Just stood there like the weather owed him an apology. His cloak hung heavy with water, the Inquisitor's seal, a sword crossed with flame, gleaming dull silver on his chest. 34 years old. 6 feet of lean muscle and cold conviction. A face that looked like it had been carved out of something harder than bone. 73 burnings. 73. And tonight would be 74. Sir. A younger guard appeared at his elbow, soaked and shivering. The prisoners secured in Chamber 3, awaiting your... I know where she is, Eric said. His voice was flat, dead. The kind of voice that didn't waste energy on inflection. Get inside before you catch your death. The guard hesitated. You sure you don't want an escort? Protocols say I'm the ranking Inquisitor within 200 miles. Eric's turned his head just enough to let the guard see his eyes, cold, gray, empty as winter stone. Which means protocols say whatever the hell I tell them to say. Now move. The guard moved. Eric's crossed the courtyard alone, boots splashing through puddles that reflected lightning in sharp white bursts. The citadel rose around him like a clenched fist. Black stone, iron-barred windows, walls thick enough to hold back armies. It had been a fortress once. Now it was a prison. A place where the Empire sent its mistakes to be corrected. Or eliminated. He pushed through the main doors into a hallway lit by torches that guttered and hissed in the draft. The air smelled like wet stone and old smoke. His boots echoed. No guards here. This deep in the citadel, you didn't need guards. The walls did the work. Chamber 3 was at the end of the east wing, down 2 flights of stairs that spiraled into the bones of the mountain. The deeper he went, the quieter it got. Just his breathing, his heartbeat, the scrape of his boots on stone. He stopped at the iron door. Breathed. 73 times he'd done this. 73 interrogations, 73 confessions, 73 lives turned to ash because they'd broken the laws of the Empire and thought magic would save them. It never did. Eric's pulled the door open. The chamber was small, maybe 15 feet across. Stone floor, stone walls, iron chains bolted into the rock. A brazier in the corner, coals glowing red, casting just enough light to see by. The heat was oppressive, thick, the kind that made your lungs work harder just to pull air. And in the center of the room, chained to a post, stood Lyra Vale. She was younger than he'd expected, mid-20s maybe, slim build, dark hair pulled back in a braid that had come half undone. Simple clothes, a healer's tunic, stained with dirt and blood. Her wrists were shackled above her head, the chains pulled taut enough that she had to stand on her toes to keep the pressure off her shoulders. But it was her eyes that stopped him. Gray, clear, steady, not afraid, not pleading, not desperate, just looking at him. Like she was reading something written on his face that he didn't know was there. Eric's closed the door behind him. The iron clanged shut with a sound like a tomb ceiling. He stepped into the firelight, hands loose at his sides, and studied her the way he'd studied 73 others, looking for cracks. Lyra Vale, he said. His voice echoed off the stone. Accused of practicing forbidden magic, specifically the healing arts classified under Section 12 of the Arcane Restriction Act. Do you know why you're here? She didn't answer right away, just kept looking at him. Then quietly, because I saved a child's life. You used magic. I used a gift. The law doesn't recognize a difference. Then the law, she said, and her voice was soft but unshakable, is wrong. Eric's felt something flicker in his chest, something small and sharp. He crushed it before it could take root. The law is the law, he said. It exists to protect the Empire from chaos, from people who think power gives them the right to do whatever they please. I healed a girl with fever sickness, Lyra said. She was 8 years old. She was dying. Her parents begged me. I did what I could. And in doing so, you violated Imperial statute. In doing so, she said, and now there was heat in her voice, I kept a child from dying in agony while her parents watched. If that's a crime, then your empire is built on cruelty. Eric stepped closer, close enough to see the sweat on her forehead, the way her hands trembled just slightly in the chains. You don't get to decide what's cruel, he said. You don't get to decide what's just. That's not your job. Then whose job is it? She met his eyes without flinching. Yours? Yes. And who gave you that job? The Empire. And who gave the Empire the right to let children die? Silence. Just the hiss of the coals, the distant rumble of thunder. Eric's felt his jaw tighten. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They were supposed to break, to cry, to beg for mercy or spit curses or crack under the weight of their own guilt. They weren't supposed to look at him like he was the one on trial. You're going to confess, he said. Quiet, controlled. You're going to tell me exactly what you did, how you did it, and who taught you, and then you're going to renounce your magic and accept the Empire's judgment. Or you burn anyway, but it'll hurt more. Lyra tilted her head, studying him now, the way he'd been studying her. You've done this before, she said, 73 times. And how many of them were guilty? All of them. How do you know? Because they confessed. After you tortured them. After they told the truth. She smiled. It was a sad smile, the kind that made his chest tighten. You really believe that, she said. Don't you? I don't believe anything, Eric said. I enforce the law. The law that says magic is evil. The law that says unregulated magic is dangerous. Dangerous to who? To everyone. I saved a life. You broke the law. I did what was right. Right doesn't matter. The words came out harsher than he'd intended. Eric's caught himself, breathed, steadied. Right is subjective. Law is objective. Without law, there's only chaos. And with law, Lyra said softly, there's only obedience. Another crack. Sharper this time. He felt it split something inside him he didn't have a name for. You're making this harder than it needs to be, he said. I'm making it exactly as hard as it is. Eric's turned away. Walked to the brazier. Stared into the coals, red and black, heat and ash. I've read your file, he said. You're a village healer, no formal training, no affiliation with any magical order. You learned from your grandmother, who learned from hers. Small magic, quiet magic, the kind that doesn't draw attention. Until it does. Until it saves the wrong person. He turned back to face her. The girl you healed, her father's a merchant. He reported you to the local magistrate. The magistrate reported you to the regional governor. The governor reported you to the capital. And the capital sent me. So I'm here because I embarrassed someone. You're here because you used forbidden magic in front of witnesses and refused to deny it. I won't deny the truth. The truth, Eric said, and his voice dropped to something cold and final, is going to get you killed. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something he didn't expect. She laughed. Not hysterical, not mocking, just tired. You know what's funny, she said. I thought when they sent an Inquisitor, it would be someone cruel, someone who enjoyed this. But you're not cruel, are you? I'm efficient. You're empty. The words hit like a blade. Eric's felt his hands curl into fists, felt heat rise in his throat. You don't know a damn thing about me, he said. I know you've burned 73 people,
she said, "and I know you sleep at night." They were guilty. They were human. They were dangerous. "So am I," she said. "Are you going to burn me too?" Silence. Eric stared at her, at the calm in her eyes, the certainty, the absolute lack of fear. It should have made him angrier. Instead, it made him tired. "Yes," he said quietly. "If you don't confess and renounce, yes, I will." "Then I guess," Lyra said, "we both know how this ends."
He left her there, walked out of the chamber, locked the door, climbed the stairs back to the surface. His mind was a flat gray line. No thoughts. No doubts. Just the echo of her voice. "You're empty." He went to his quarters, a small room in the west tower, sparse and cold. A bed, a desk, a window that looked out over the cliffs. He poured himself a glass of water, drank it in 3 swallows, and sat down at the desk. The report was already half written. Subject, Lyra Vale. Charge, unauthorized use of healing magic. Evidence, eyewitness testimony, magical residue detected at scene. Recommendation, full confession followed by execution. Standard, clean, simple. He picked up the pen. Put it down. Picked it up again. You're empty." "Shut up," he muttered. He forced himself to write. 3 lines. 4. The formal language of imperial justice. Cold, precise, detached. But his hand kept stopping. He thought about her eyes, the way she'd looked at him. Not like a victim, like someone who knew something he didn't, like someone who saw through him. He finished the report, signed it, sealed it, then sat there staring at it for 20 minutes. Finally, he stood, walked to the window, stared out at the storm. The rain was starting to ease, lightning flickered on the horizon, distant now. The worst had passed, but something in his chest still felt like thunder. The next morning he went back. He didn't plan to, didn't decide to, just found himself walking down the stairs, key in hand, the iron door swinging open. Lyra was still chained, still standing. Her eyes were closed, her head tilted back slightly, and for a second he thought she'd passed out. Then she opened her eyes and looked at him. "Back already?" she said. Her voice was rough, tired, but still steady. Eric's didn't answer, just stood there, arms crossed, watching her. "You didn't sleep," she said. "How would you know? You've got the look." "What look?" "The look of a man who's starting to ask questions he doesn't want answers to." He felt his jaw tighten. "I came to ask you something," he said. "Go ahead." "Why didn't you run?" Lyra blinked. "What?" "You knew they were coming for you. The merchant reported you 3 days before the soldiers arrived. You had time. You could have disappeared, gone to the border, changed your name. Why didn't you?" She was quiet for a moment, then, "Because I didn't do anything wrong." "That's not an answer." "Yes, it is." Her voice was firm. "Running would mean I believed I was guilty, that I believed healing someone was a crime. I won't give them that." "So you chose martyrdom." "I chose honesty." Eric shook his head. "Honesty's a luxury. You can't afford it." "Can you?" The question hung in the air like smoke. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked over to the brazier, picked up the iron poker, stirred the coals. "I'm supposed to torture you," he said, not looking at her. "Standard procedure. Pain breaks resistance. Resistance breaks will. Will breaks confession." "I know." "And you're not afraid." "I'm terrified," she said. "But fear doesn't change the truth." He turned to look at her. "Then tell me the truth," he said. "All of it. How your magic works. What it does. What it costs." "Why?" "Because I need to understand what I'm burning." Lyra studied him for a long moment. Then slowly, she nodded. "All right," she said. "But you're not going to like it." She talked for an hour. Eric's didn't interrupt, didn't question, just listened. She told him about the first time she'd healed someone, her younger brother, who'd fallen from a tree and broken his arm. She'd been 12. Didn't know what she was doing. Just put her hands on the fracture and felt something warm flow out of her, into him, and the bone had knitted itself back together in minutes. Her grandmother had seen, had pulled her aside, had explained.
Magic wasn't evil. It was life.
It was the same force that made plants grow and wounds close and hearts beat. Some people could feel it, shape it, use it, but using it cost. Every time I heal someone, Lyra said, I take their pain into myself. Not all of it, but enough. A broken bone feels like a deep ache for a few hours. A fever feels like chills and nausea. A wound. She paused. A wound feels like being cut open. Eric's felt something cold settle in his stomach. You hurt yourself to heal others.
Yes. Why? Because pain fades, she said simply. Death doesn't. He stared at her. You're insane. Maybe. You could have just not done it. Let the girl die. Saved yourself. Could you? She asked. If you saw a child dying and you had the power to stop it, could you walk away? He wanted to say yes. He couldn't. That's different, he said. How? I don't have magic. You have a sword. You have authority. You have the power to decide who lives and who dies. How is that different? Eric's opened his mouth, closed it. No answer. Lyra leaned her head back against the post. I've been thinking about you, she said. The hammer of God. The Inquisitor who never fails. 73 burnings, no mercy, no hesitation. And I keep wondering, she said, what you're running from. His whole body went rigid. I'm not running from anything. Everyone's running from something. Not me. Then why do you do this? She met his eyes. Why do you burn people for a living? What are you trying to prove? I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm doing my job. Your job is killing. My job is justice. Justice. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You call this justice? Chaining people up and burning them alive because they don't fit into your empire's neat little rules? The rules keep people safe. The rules keep people controlled. Same thing. No, she said, and her voice cracked like a whip. It's not. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, choking. Eric's turned away, walked to the door, stopped. I'll be back tomorrow, he said. We'll continue this. Why? Lyra called after him. Why not just kill me now and get it over with? He didn't turn around. Because I'm not sure yet, he said quietly. Not sure of what? Whether you're lying. I'm not. Then prove it. The days blurred together after that. Every morning, Eric's went down to Chamber 3. Every morning, he questioned her. And every morning, she answered with the same calm, steady conviction. She didn't lie, didn't exaggerate, didn't try to make herself sound noble or heroic. She just told him what she'd done and why. And slowly, piece by piece, his certainty started to crack. On the third day, he brought a wounded soldier, a man who'd taken a sword cut across the ribs during a skirmish on the northern border. Infection had set in. The wound was turning black. Heal him, Eric said. Lyra looked at the soldier, then at Eric's. You'll use this as evidence, she said. Yes. And if I refuse? He dies. She closed her eyes, breathed. Unchain me. Eric's hesitated, then nodded to the guard, who unlocked the shackles. Lyra's arms dropped, and she staggered, catching herself against the post. Her wrists were raw, bleeding. She didn't seem to notice. She walked over to the soldier, knelt beside him, and placed her hands on the wound. Eric's watched. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light, soft, gold, like dawn breaking through clouds. It poured from her hands into the wound, and Eric saw the flesh begin to knit, saw the black infection retreat, saw the man's breathing ease, and saw Lyra go pale. Her hands trembled. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. When she finally pulled her hands away, the wound was closed, clean, pink, new. And Lyra collapsed. Eric's caught her before she hit the ground. She was shaking, gasping. Her skin was ice cold. Get her water, he snapped at the guard. The guard ran. Eric's lowered her to the floor, supporting her head. Her eyes were half closed, unfocused. You said it hurt, he said. You didn't say it would do this. Told you, she whispered. You wouldn't like it. The guard returned with water. Eric's held the cup to her lips, and she drank, slow and shaky. The soldier sat up, staring at his side in disbelief. I can breathe, he said. It doesn't hurt. Eric's didn't look at him, just kept his eyes on Lyra. Get out, he said. Sir? Get out. The soldier and the guard scrambled for the door. When they were gone, Eric's helped Lyra sit up, her back against the post.
Why did you do that? He asked. You told me to. You could have refused. And let him die? She managed a weak smile. Not really my style. Eric stared at her, at the exhaustion in her face, the pain she was trying to hide. You're either the bravest person I've ever met, he said, or the most foolish. Can't I be both? Despite himself, he almost smiled. Almost. That night, he didn't write a report. He sat at his desk, staring at the blank page, and couldn't make his hand move. 73 confessions, 73 burnings. But this one was different. This one had looked him in the eye and showed him something he didn't have a name for. This one had taken pain into herself to save a stranger. This one wasn't a monster. And if she wasn't a monster, then what did that make him? A knock at the door. Eric's looked up. Enter. A messenger stepped in, a young man in the black and silver of the Imperial Courier Service. Inquisitor Vane, he said, saluting. Message from the capital. Eric's took the sealed letter, broke the wax, read. His blood went cold. Inquisitor Vane. Your delay in executing the heretic Lyra Vale has been noted. Senior Inquisitor Cadmus Rahale will arrive within 3 days to oversee the case personally. Ensure the prisoner is ready for final judgment. Failure to comply will result in disciplinary action. Eric's read it twice, then crumpled it in his fist. Dismissed, he said. The messenger left. Eric sat there, the letter crushed in his hand, and felt the walls closing in. Cadmus Rahale, the head inquisitor, the man who'd trained him, the man who'd burned more heretics than anyone in the Empire's history, the man who didn't believe in second chances. If Cadmus arrived and found Lyra still alive, still unchained, still unbroken, Eric's would burn alongside her. He stood, paced, thought. 3 days. He had 3 days to decide. Execute her and save himself, or protect her and damn them both. The next morning he went down to Chamber 3 before dawn. Lyra was awake, sitting against the post, arms wrapped around her knees. She looked up when he entered. You look like hell, she said. The Capitol's sending someone, Eric said. No preamble, no softening. A senior inquisitor. He'll be here in 3 days. When he arrives, you'll be executed immediately. Lyra didn't react, just nodded slowly. So this is it, she said. This is it. And you're here to... I don't know. She studied him. You could let me go, she said. No. Why not? Because if I let you go, they'll know. They'll hunt you, and they'll burn every village between here and the border looking for you. So you're protecting me by keeping me here? I'm protecting everyone else by keeping you here. Lyra laughed, sharp, bitter. You really believe that? I have to. Why? Because if I don't, Eric said, and his voice cracked just slightly, then everything I've done has been for nothing. Silence. Lyra stood, walked over to him, stopped just out of reach. You want to know what I think? She said. No, I think you're terrified, she said. I think you've spent so long being the hammer that you've forgotten how to be human. And now you're standing here looking at me and you're realizing that maybe, just maybe, you've been on the wrong side this whole time. Eric's felt something crack, deep, final. You don't know what you're talking about, he said. Don't I? I've saved lives. I've protected the Empire. I've stopped chaos from spreading. You've killed people who didn't deserve to die. They broke the law. The law is broken. Lyra stepped closer, close enough that he could see the fire in her eyes. And you know it. You've known it since the moment you walked into this room. You just don't want to admit it. Stop. Why? Because it hurts? Because it doesn't matter. The words exploded out of him. It doesn't matter what I believe. It doesn't matter what's right. In 3 days, Cadmus Rahale is going to walk through that door and he's going to burn you alive, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Then don't stop it.
Eric stared at her. What? Don't stop it, she said. Let him come. Let him burn me. You'll go back to your life, back to your certainty, back to being empty. I'm not.
Yes, you are. Her voice was soft now, sad. You're so empty you don't even realize it anymore. Eric's felt his hand shaking, felt something rising in his throat. I can't save you, he whispered. I don't need you to save me, Lyra said. I need you to choose. Choose what? Who you want to be. He didn't sleep that night, or the next, just paced his room, thinking, planning, tearing himself apart. On the third day, Cadmus Rael arrived. Eric stood in the courtyard as the carriage rolled through the gates. Black, polished, the imperial seal emblazoned on the side. The door opened, and out stepped a man who looked like death in human skin. Cadmus Rael was 60, tall, thin, gray-haired. His face was a map of hard lines and old scars. His eyes were the color of ash. He looked at Eric's and smiled. Eric's, he said. His voice was smooth, cold. It's been too long. Master Rael, Eric said, bowing. None of that. Cadmus waved a hand. We're colleagues now, equals. He glanced around the courtyard. So, where's the heretic? Chamber 3. Still alive, I assume? Yes. Interesting. Cadmus's smile didn't reach his eyes. I read your reports, or rather, the lack thereof. You've been here a week, Eric's, a week, and yet you haven't extracted a confession. She's resistant. Then you break her. I've tried. Not hard enough. Cadmus stepped closer. You're losing your edge, boy. This should have been done days ago. Eric's felt his jaw clench. She's not like the others. They never are, Cadmus said. That's the lie they tell themselves, that they're special, unique, chosen. He turned toward the citadel. Show me. They walked down to Chamber 3 in silence. Eric's heart was a drumbeat. His hands were steady, but his mind was screaming. He unlocked the door, stepped inside. Lyra was standing, chained again. Her eyes went to Cadmus, and something in her face hardened. So, she said, you're the butcher. Cadmus smiled. And you're the witch. He circled her slowly, hands clasped behind his back. Lyra Vale, village healer, self-taught, no formal training, remarkably powerful for someone with no education. I had a good teacher. Your grandmother, yes. We burned her 20 years ago. Lyra's face went white. You're lying. I never lie. Cadmus stopped in front of her. She was practicing the same magic you are, healing the sick, saving the dying, breaking the law. He leaned in close. She screamed for 3 hours before the fire took her. Lyra lunged. The chains snapped taut, and she snarled, teeth bared, every ounce of calm gone. Cadmus didn't flinch, just smiled wider. There it is, he said. The anger, the hate. That's what magic really is, girl. It's not love. It's not compassion. It's rage given form. You don't know anything about magic, Lyra spat. I know it corrupts, Cadmus said. I know it destroys. I know it turns good people into monsters. He straightened, looked at Eric's. Wouldn't you agree, Inquisitor Vane? Eric's felt every eye in the room on him, felt the weight of the moment, the choice. Yes, he heard himself say. I would. And Lyra's eyes went cold. Cadmus nodded, satisfied. Good. Then let's end this. He turned to Lyra. Confess your crimes. Renounce your magic, and I'll make your death quick. Lyra looked at Eric's. He couldn't meet her gaze. I have nothing to confess, she said. Cadmus sighed. Very well. He gestured to Eric's. Inquisitor, the tools. Eric's blood turned to ice. Sir? The tools, Cadmus repeated. Surely you have implements for persuasion. Eric's hesitated. I was attempting a different approach. Surely it didn't work. Cadmus's voice sharpened. Now bring me the tools or step aside and let someone competent handle it. Eric's felt the world narrow to a single point, felt everything he'd built, everything he'd believed, everything he'd killed for, hanging in the balance. He looked at Lyra. She was staring at him, not pleading, just waiting. Choose.
Eric's turned to Cadmus. No, he said. Silence. Cadmus blinked. Excuse me? I said no. Eric's voice was steady now, certain. I won't torture her. You won't? Cadmus's face went dark. Do you understand what you're saying? Yes. You're refusing a direct order from a senior inquisitor. Yes. That's treason. I know. Cadmus stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed, cold, harsh, humorless. I knew it, he said. I knew you'd gone soft. The moment I read your reports, I knew. He shook his head. You're just like your father. Eric's felt the world tilt. Don't. Weak, sentimental, corrupted by mercy. Don't. He begged too, you know. At the end. Begged me not to burn him. Eric's vision went red. Shut your mouth. But I did it anyway, Cadmus continued, smiling, because that's what the law demands. And unlike you, I'm not afraid to do what's necessary. Something inside Eric snapped. He moved. 1 step, 2. And his fist slammed into Cadmus's jaw. The older man staggered, blood spraying from his mouth. Eric's didn't stop. He hit him again and again, felt bone crack under his knuckles, felt rage pour out of him in waves. Guards rushed in. They grabbed his arms, dragged him back. Cadmus was on the floor, coughing blood. He looked up at Eric's and smiled. There it is, he whispered. The monster. Eric's felt the fight drain out of him, felt the guard's hands on his shoulders, felt the weight of what he'd just done. Cadmus stood, wiping blood from his mouth. Eric's vein, he said, voice cold and formal. You are hereby stripped of your rank and title. You will be detained pending trial for treason, assault on a superior officer, and conspiracy with a known heretic. He turned to the guards. Take him to the cells and prepare the witch for burning. We do it tonight. The guards hauled Eric's toward the door. He looked back at Lyra. She was smiling. Not a happy smile. A proud one. And as the door slammed shut behind him, Eric's realized something. For the first time in his life, he'd made a choice that was his. Not the Empire's. Not the law's. His. And it felt like freedom, even as the chains closed around him. The cell was smaller than the interrogation chamber. Eric sat with his back against the stone wall, wrist chained to an iron ring bolted into the floor. The metal was cold, heavy, familiar. He'd put these chains on other people, 73 other people. Now they were his. His knuckles were split open, still bleeding from where he'd hit Cadmus. The blood had dried in dark lines across his fingers. He could taste copper in his mouth, could feel the bruises forming along his ribs where the guards had slammed him against the wall. Worth it. Every goddamn second. The door opened. Eric's didn't look up, just kept staring at the floor. On your feet. Not Cadmus's voice. Younger, sharper. Eric's raised his head. A woman stood in the doorway. 30, maybe 35. Tall, lean, dark skin, darker eyes. She wore the black and silver of an inquisitor, but her uniform was different. More practical, less ceremonial. Twin blades at her hips, a scar running from her left temple to her jaw. I said on your feet, she repeated. Who the hell are you? Inquisitor Miracade, I'm taking over your case. My case? Eric's almost laughed. I don't have a case, I have a death sentence. Not yet. Mira stepped into the cell. Cadmus wants you executed, but the capital needs a formal trial first. Imperial protocol, even for traitors. So you're here to drag me through the motions. I'm here to ask questions. She crouched down in front of him, arms resting on her knees. Starting with why you did it. I hit him because he's a bastard. You hit him because of the girl. Eric's met her eyes. Maybe. No. Maybe about it. Mira tilted her head. You spent a week alone with her. A week. Most inquisitors would have had a confession in 3 days. But not you. You kept going back, kept talking to her, kept delaying. I was being thorough. You were being compromised. Call it what you want. Mira studied him for a long moment. You know what I think? She said. I don't care what you think. I think you fell for her. Eric's felt his jaw tighten. That's ridiculous. Is it? Mira leaned closer. I've read every report you filed in the last 10 years, every single one. Cold, clinical, efficient, no hesitation, no doubt. Then suddenly you get assigned a healer with gray eyes and a martyr complex, and you lose your mind. I didn't lose anything. You lost your career, your rank, your freedom. And for what? A woman you barely know? For the truth. Mira laughed, short, sharp. The truth, right. She's not a criminal. She broke the law. The law is wrong. And that's your call to make? Someone has to make it. Mira shook her head. You're either the bravest idiot I've ever met or the stupidest hero. I haven't decided which. Why are you here? Eric's asked. If you're just going to lecture me, I'm here because Cadmus wants you dead by sunrise, Mira said. But I'm not Cadmus. I don't burn people just because they ask questions. So what do you want? I want to know if she's worth it. Eric stared at her. What? The girl. Lyra. Is she worth dying for? Yes. No hesitation, no doubt. Mira's expression didn't change, just kept watching him. Then you're an idiot, she said. But at least you're honest. She stood, walked to the door, stopped. Cadmus is burning her tonight, she said. Sunset, public execution. He's already sent word to the villages. He wants an audience. Eric's felt ice flood his veins. You can't let him do that. I can't stop him. He outranks me. Then what the hell are you doing here? Mira turned, looked at him. Giving you a choice, she said. You can sit in this cell and wait for your trial. Play it safe. Maybe the Capitol shows mercy. Maybe they just exile you instead of executing you. Or you can do something incredibly stupid. Eric's felt something flicker in his chest. Something sharp, dangerous. I'm listening. Mira glanced over her shoulder, then stepped back into the cell and lowered her voice. There's a shift change at dusk, she said. 2 guards on the east gate, old men, sloppy. If someone were to cause a distraction in the courtyard, they'd leave their post to investigate. You're telling me how to escape. I'm telling you the guards are lazy. Why? Because Cadmus burned my sister, Mira said. Her voice was flat, dead. 3 years ago, she was a cartographer, drew maps for the Empire, but she also drew maps for refugees trying to cross the border. He called it treason. I called it mercy. She met his eyes. He made me watch. Silence. Eric's felt something shift in his chest. I'm sorry, he said. Don't be sorry. Be smart. Mira turned toward the door again. The witch is in the north tower, 3rd floor, 2 guards. If you're fast, you might reach her before they move her to the pyre. And then what? Then you run, as far and as fast as you can. They'll hunt us. Yes. They'll burn every village between here and the border. Probably. So why help me? Mira looked back at him one last time. Because someone should have helped my sister, she said, and no one did. She walked out. The door clanged shut. Eric sat there, heart pounding, mind racing. A choice. Again. Always a choice. He looked down at his chains, at the blood on his hands, at the man he used to be. Then he started working on the locks. The distraction came at dusk. A fire in the stables. Nothing big, just enough smoke to draw attention. Eric's heard the shouts, heard boots running past his cell. The lock clicked open. He didn't know how Mira had done it, didn't care. He was out. The hallway was empty, torches flickering, shadows everywhere. Eric's moved fast, kept low, bare feet silent on stone. He knew this place. Every corner, every stairwell. He'd walked these halls for a week. Now he was using them to run. He reached the north tower, took the stairs 3 at a time. 3rd floor. 2 guards. Just like Mira had said. They turned when they heard him coming. Eric's didn't give them time to react. He hit the first one in the throat. The man went down choking. The second one reached for his sword. Eric's grabbed his wrist, twisted, heard bone snap. The guard screamed. Eric's took the sword, slammed the pommel into the man's temple. He dropped. Eric's grabbed the keys from his belt, unlocked the door, pushed it open. Lyra was sitting on the floor, hands bound in front of her. She looked up, startled. Eric's? We're leaving. What? We're leaving. Now. He crossed the room, cut her bonds with the sword. Lyra stood, rubbing her wrists.
You're insane. They'll kill you. They're going to kill me anyway. Then why? Because I'm done burning people. He grabbed her arm. Let's go. They ran. Down the stairs, through the hallways, past cells and chambers and rooms Eric's had walked through 1,000 times as an Inquisitor. Now he was a fugitive. They reached the east gate, just like Mira had said, empty. Eric's pushed the gate open. Cold air hit his face. Freedom. He turned to Lyra. Can you run? Can I? Yes, I can run. Then run. They ran, out of the citadel, down the mountain path, into the darkness. Behind them, bells started ringing, the alarm. They'd been discovered. Eric's didn't look back, just kept running, Lyra's hand in his, the night swallowing them whole. They ran for hours. Through forests, across streams, over rocks that cut their feet and branches that tore their skin. Eric's lungs burned, his legs screamed, but he didn't stop, couldn't stop. Behind them, he could hear hounds baying, torches in the distance. They were being hunted. Finally, Lyra collapsed. Eric's caught her before she hit the ground. I can't, she gasped. I can't keep going. You have to. I can't. Eric's looked around. They were deep in the forest now, dense trees, thick underbrush, a river nearby. He could hear it. This way, he said. He helped her up. Half carried, half dragged her to the river. The water was freezing, fast, deep. Get in, he said. What? The water. It'll hide our scent from the dogs. Lyra stared at him, then at the river. We'll freeze. We'll die if we don't. She didn't argue. They waded in together, the cold hit like a fist. Eric's felt his body lock up, felt his teeth start to chatter, but he pushed forward, pulled Lyra with him. They followed the river downstream for what felt like miles. The current pulled at them, tried to drag them under. Eric's held on. Finally, when he couldn't feel his fingers anymore, he pulled them onto the far bank. They collapsed in the mud, shivering, gasping. The hounds were distant now, fading. They'd lost them, for now. Eric's rolled onto his back, stared up at the stars through the trees. We did it, Lyra whispered. We escaped. Now what? Good question. Eric's had no idea set. They found shelter in a cave just before dawn. Small, dry, hidden behind a waterfall. Eric's built a fire with shaking hands, got it lit on the third try. They sat in silence, warming themselves, clothes steaming. Finally, Lyra spoke. Why did you do it? Eric's didn't look at her, just stared at the flames. I don't know. Yes, you do. He was quiet for a long time. Then, because you were right. About what? Everything. He looked at her. I've been empty for so long, I forgot what it felt like to be human. You reminded me. By being chained up? By refusing to break. Lyra smiled, sad, tired. You know we can't go back, she said. I know. They'll hunt us forever. I know. We'll be fugitives, criminals, heretics. I know. And you're okay with that? Eric's thought about it, about everything he'd lost, everything he'd given up, his rank, his title, his certainty. 73 burnings, 73 lives. All for a system that called mercy a crime. Yeah, he said, I'm okay with that. Lyra reached over, took his hand. Her fingers were cold, rough, real. Thank you, she said. For what? For choosing. They stayed in the cave for 2 days, resting, healing, planning. Eric's body was a map of bruises. His ribs ached every time he breathed. His hands were swollen from the fight, but he was alive. Lyra was in better shape. She'd healed some of her own wounds, the raw skin on her wrists, the cuts on her feet, but each time she used her magic, she paid for it. Eric's watched her go pale, watched her hands shake, watched her grit her teeth against pain only she could feel. Stop, he said on the second day. She was healing a gash on her leg, blood slicking her fingers. I'm fine. You're not fine. You look like death. It's just a little... Stop. He grabbed her wrist. You don't have to prove anything to me. Lyra looked at him, then down at her leg. The wound was half closed, still bleeding. Slowly, she pulled her hands away. "Old habit," she said. "Break it. I've been healing people my whole life. It's who I am." "Then be someone who takes care of herself too." Lyra smiled. "You sound like my grandmother." "The one Cadmus burned?" Her smile faded. "Yeah." Silence. Eric's looked away. "I'm sorry." "You didn't burn her. I burned people like her. And now you're running with one." Lyra leaned back against the cave wall. "Funny how things change." "Funny is not the word I'd use." "What word would you use?" Eric's thought about it. "Necessary," he said. On the third day, they moved, stayed off the roads, kept to the forests, traveled at night. Eric's had a plan, rough, half-formed, but a plan. There was a town on the western border, small, remote, far enough from the citadel that the Empire's reach was weak. If they could get there, they could disappear. Maybe. They walked in silence mostly. Lyra was strong, but tired. Eric's could see it in the way she moved, the way her shoulders slumped. "We can rest," he said. "I'm fine." "You're not." "I'm fine." Stubborn, just like him. They kept walking. As the sun set, they crested a ridge and saw lights in the valley below. A village. Eric's felt his stomach tighten. "We should go around," he said. "Why?" "Too risky. If someone recognizes me—" "No one's going to recognize you," Lyra said. "You're not wearing your uniform. You look like a refugee." "I feel like a refugee." "Then act like one." She started down the ridge. "Come on, we need supplies." Eric's followed, every instinct screaming at him to turn around. The village was small, maybe 50 houses, a tavern, a general store. They kept their heads down, bought bread, dried meat, a water skin. The shopkeeper didn't ask questions, just took their coin and looked away. They were halfway out of the village when Eric's heard it. A voice. Familiar. Angry. He turned and saw her. A woman. Mid-40s, thin, hard-faced, standing in the doorway of a house, yelling at someone inside. Eric's recognized her immediately. Mara Thorne, the mother of the 16th person he'd burned. His blood went cold. "Eric's?" Lyra's voice, distant. "What's wrong?" He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Mara turned, saw him. Her face went white, then red. "You," she whispered. Eric's took a step back. Mara started walking toward him, slow, deliberate. "You," she said again, louder now. "You're the Inquisitor." People were starting to stare. "I'm not—" "You burned my son," Mara's voice cracked. "You burned him alive, and you didn't even flinch." Eric's felt the world closing in. "I'm sorry," he said. The words sounded hollow, useless. "Sorry?" Mara laughed, sharp, bitter. "You're sorry?" A crowd was forming now, men, women, hard eyes, harder faces. "He was 17 years old," Mara said. "He stole food because we were starving, and you called it theft. You called it a crime against the Empire." "I was following orders." "You were following orders." She spat at his feet. "You were a coward." Eric's opened his mouth, closed it. No defense. She was right. "Someone get the magistrate," a man in the crowd called. "No," another voice said. "Get a rope." Lyra stepped in front of Eric's. "Stop," she said. Her voice was calm, clear. "This isn't justice." "Justice?" Mara turned on her. "What do you know about justice?" "I know that killing him won't bring your son back." "It'll make me feel better." "For how long?" Lyra met her eyes. "An hour? A day? And then what? You'll still be empty. You'll still be grieving. But now you'll be a murderer too." Mara's face twisted. "Get out of my way." "No." The crowd pressed closer. Eric's grabbed Lyra's arm. "We need to go." "I'm not running from this. They're going to kill us." "Then let them try." She turned back to the crowd, raised her voice. "I know what he did," she said. "I know he burned people. I know he followed the Empire's orders without question. But he's not that man anymore. How do you know? Someone shouted. Because he saved me. Silence. Lyra stepped forward. My name is Lyra Vale, she said. I'm a healer. The Empire called me a heretic. They sent him to execute me, and he refused. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. He gave up everything to protect me, Lyra continued. His rank, his career, his life. He made a choice, and now we're both running. That doesn't change what he did, Mara said. No, it doesn't. Lyra's voice softened. But it means he's trying to change, and that's more than most people do. Mara stared at her, then at Eric's. If I see you again, she said, voice low and cold, I will kill you. Eric's nodded. I understand. Mara turned away. The crowd parted. Eric's and Lyra walked through them, slowly, heads down. No one stopped them. But Eric's could feel their eyes, could feel their hate. And he knew this was just the beginning. They camped that night in the forest, miles from the village. Eric sat by the fire, staring into the flames. Lyra sat across from him. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yes, I did. They would have killed me. I know. So why risk it? Lyra looked at him. Because you risked everything for me, she said. I owed you. You don't owe me anything. I owe you my life. Then we're even, Lyra smiled. Not even close. Eric shook his head. You're insane. Maybe. She leaned back. But at least I'm not empty anymore. He looked at her, at the firelight in her eyes. Neither am I, he said. The next town was worse. The next one after that was worse still. Word was spreading. Eric's Vane, the fallen Inquisitor. The traitor. The heretic's ally. Everywhere they went, people recognized him, cursed him, spat at him. Some tried to turn them in. Some tried to kill them. Eric stopped counting after the 5th attempt. They kept moving, kept running. But the world was shrinking. On the 7th night, huddled in a barn on the edge of nowhere, Lyra finally broke. We can't keep doing this, she said. We don't have a choice. Yes, we do. She looked at him. We turn back. Face Cadmus. Accept whatever judgment comes. That's suicide. This is suicide, just slower. Eric's didn't have an answer for that. Because she was right. They couldn't run forever. Sooner or later, the Empire would catch them, and when it did, they'd both burn. There has to be another way, he said. Like what? I don't know, but there has to be something. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then, what if we didn't run? What? What if we stayed, fought back? Eric stared at her. Against the Empire? Against the system, the laws, the people who think magic is evil and mercy is weakness. That's impossible. So was escaping Blackthorn. This is different. How? Because Eric stopped, thought. Because we're just two people. Every rebellion starts with two people. This isn't a rebellion. Then what is it? Eric's opened his mouth, closed it. No answer. Lyra leaned forward. You spent your whole life enforcing the Empire's will, she said. Now you have a chance to fight it, to change it, to prove that mercy isn't weakness. And how do we do that? We show them. Show them what? That magic isn't evil, that healing isn't a crime, that people like me deserve to exist without hiding. Her eyes were bright, fierce. We build something new, something better, right under their noses. Eric's felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. That's insane, he said. Probably. It'll get us killed. Maybe. So why do it? Lyra smiled. Because someone has to. They stayed in the barn that night, planning, dreaming, building something fragile and dangerous out of words and hope. By dawn, they had a plan. Not a good plan, but a plan. They'd go back to Blackthorn. Not to surrender, to take it. They'll never let us in, Eric said. They will if we have leverage. What leverage? Lyra looked at him. You know things, she said, about the Inquisitors, about Cadmus, about how the system works. So we use that. We expose them, show people what they really are.
And how do we do that? I don't know yet. Lyra stood. But we'll figure it out. Eric's looked up at her, at the determination in her face, at the woman who'd refused to break. You're serious, he said. Dead serious. This is suicide. Then we die trying. Eric stood, faced her. If we do this, he said, there's no going back. We'll be enemies of the Empire. Traitors, heretics. They'll hunt us until we're dead. I know. And you're okay with that? Lyra stepped closer, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her gray eyes. I'm okay with dying if it means something, she said. Are you? Eric's thought about the 73 people he'd burned, about the woman in the village who'd lost her son, about all the lives he'd destroyed in the name of law and order, about the chance to make it right. Yeah, he said. I am. Lyra held out her hand. Eric's took it, and together they walked out of the barn and into the rising sun, toward a reckoning neither of them was ready for. The journey back to Blackthorn took 4 days. 4 days of walking through forests that seemed to close in tighter with every mile. 4 days of sleeping in ditches and caves and anywhere the Empire's patrols wouldn't look. 4 days of rationing stale bread and water that tasted like rust. And 4 days of Eric's watching Lyra transform. She wasn't the same woman he'd found chained in Chamber 3. That woman had been calm, steady, resigned to whatever fate the Empire handed her. This woman was something else entirely. This woman walked like she had a purpose, talked like she had a plan, looked at the world like it owed her answers, and she was damn well going to collect. It should have worried him. Instead, it made him believe. On the third night, they camped in the ruins of an old watchtower. Stone walls half collapsed, roof gone, just enough shelter to hide a fire. Eric sat with his back against the wall, watching Lyra pace. She'd been pacing for an hour. You're going to wear a hole in the ground, he said. She didn't stop. I'm thinking. You've been thinking for 3 days. Then I'll think for 3 more. She turned to face him. We need leverage, real leverage, something that'll make them listen. They're not going to listen. They're going to kill us. Not if we make them afraid. Afraid of what? We're 2 fugitives. They're the Empire. Lyra stopped pacing, stared at him with eyes that burned. You know things, she said, about the Inquisitors, about how they operate, about the people they've burned. So we use that. We expose them, show the world what they really are. The world already knows what they are. They don't care. Then we make them care. She crouched down in front of him. You said Cadmus burned your father. Eric's went rigid. Don't. Why did he do it? I said don't. Eric's, because my father questioned an execution. The words exploded out of him. Because he stood up in front of the council and said the woman they were about to burn was innocent, because he chose mercy over law. And Cadmus called it corruption. Lyra's face softened. How old were you? 16. And they made you watch. It wasn't a question. Eric's looked away. They made me light the pyre. Silence. Just the crackle of the fire. The wind through the broken walls. I'm sorry, Lyra said quietly. Don't be. It made me who I am. A man who burns people? A man who followed orders. He looked at her. Until you. Lyra reached out, touched his hand. Then let's make it mean something, she said. Let's use what they did to you, what they did to your father, what they've done to thousands of people. Let's burn their system to the ground. Eric stared at her hand on his, at the warmth of it, the steadiness. You really think we can do this? He said. I think we have to try. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, he said. Tell me your plan. They reached Blackthorn Citadel on the 4th day. Not through the front gates, not through the mountain path. Through the old smuggler's tunnel that ran under the east wall. Eric's had found it years ago, during his first assignment at the Citadel. A crack in the foundation that led to a natural cave system. The Empire didn't know it existed, or if they did, they didn't care. They crawled through darkness for what felt like hours, stones scraping their backs, water dripping from somewhere above, the air thick and stale. Finally, they emerged in the lower cellars, empty, abandoned.
The Empire used these levels for storage now. Nothing important. Perfect. Eric's led the way through corridors he knew by heart, past empty cells and forgotten chambers, up a narrow staircase that opened into the main prison block. He stopped at the top, listened. Footsteps. Distant. 2 guards. Maybe 3. He turned to Lyra, put a finger to his lips. She nodded. They moved fast, kept to the shadows. Eric's heart was a hammer in his chest. This was insane. This was suicide. This was the only chance they had. They reached the archive room on the 2nd floor. A heavy wooden door, iron lock. Eric's pulled a thin piece of metal from his boot, started working the lock. "Where did you learn that?" Lyra whispered. "You don't want to know." The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside, the room was lined with shelves, thousands of documents, reports, confessions, execution orders, the Empire's entire history of judgment, recorded and filed away. Eric stepped inside, started pulling files. "What are we looking for?" Lyra asked. "Proof," Eric said. "Evidence. Anything that shows the Inquisitors have been executing innocent people. They've been executing innocent people for decades. Then we find the worst cases, the ones even the Empire can't justify." They worked fast, pulling files, scanning pages, looking for names, dates, crimes that didn't match the punishment. Eric's found his father's file first. He stared at it, at the neat handwriting, the official seal, treason, corruption, conspiracy against imperial law. Sentence, death by fire, signed by Cadmus Rael. Eric's felt bile rise in his throat. "Eric's!" Lyra's voice, tight, strange. He looked up. She was standing by the far shelf, holding a file. Her face was white. "What is it?" he asked. She didn't answer, just stared at the pages. Eric's crossed the room, took the file from her hands, read, and felt the world tilt. Subject, Lyra Vale. Charge, unauthorized healing magic. Investigation initiated by Senior Inquisitor Cadmus Rael. Asset embedded, Mira Cade. Objective, assess subject's threat level and potential for recruitment. Recruitment. Eric's read it again, then again. "What the hell is this?" he said. Lyra looked at him. Her eyes were wide, terrified. "I don't know." Eric's flipped the page. More notes. More details. Subject shows exceptional magical ability. Healing capacity far exceeds standard practitioners. Psychological profile suggests strong moral conviction. Unlikely to cooperate under duress. Recommend alternate approach. Note, Inquisitor Vane assigned to Cade, known for rigidity and loyalty. If he can be turned, subject's trust will follow. The words hit like bullets. Eric's felt his hands start to shake. "This was a setup," he said. His voice was distant, dead. "The whole thing, from the beginning. Eric's, they sent me to interrogate you because they knew I'd break. They knew I'd question everything. They knew I'd—" He stopped, looked at her. "Did you know?" "What? No." "Did you know this was a setup?" "No. I swear I had no idea. Mira." The name came out like poison. "She let me escape. She told me where you were. She gave me the whole goddamn plan. Maybe she was trying to help. Or maybe she was hurting us exactly where they wanted us to go." Eric's threw the file across the room. "We're not rebels. We're not freedom fighters. We're pawns." Lyra grabbed his arm. "We don't know that. It's right there in black and white." "Then we figure out why. We find out what they're really planning." A voice cut through the darkness. "You already have." Eric spun. Mira Cade stood in the doorway. 2 guards flanked her, swords drawn. She looked exactly the same as she had in the cell, calm, controlled, not a hint of guilt on her face. "Hello, Eric's," she said. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out." Eric's felt rage flood his veins. "You set us up." "I gave you a choice. You manipulated me. I gave you the tools to make your own decision." Mira stepped into the room. "Everything that happened after that was on you." "Why?" "Because the Empire needs people like her." Mira gestured to Lyra. "Healers, mages, people with power who can be controlled." "I can't be controlled," Lyra said. Her voice was ice. Everyone can be controlled, Mira said. It's just a matter of finding the right leverage. She looked at Eric's. For you, it was guilt. For her, it was you. Eric's took a step forward. The guards raised their swords. Easy, Mira said. You're outnumbered, outmatched, and this room is surrounded. You're not getting out. Then what? Eric's asked. You drag us back to Cadmus? Let him burn us? No. Mira's expression didn't change. Cadmus is dead. Silence. Eric stared at her. What? He died 3 days ago. Heart failure, very sudden, very convenient. Mira smiled. I'm Senior Inquisitor now, which means I decide what happens to you. And what's that? You have a choice. Mira crossed her arms. You can resist, fight, die like martyrs. Or you can work for me. Work for you? Lyra's voice was sharp, disgusted. The Empire is changing, Mira said. The old ways don't work anymore. People are starting to question, starting to rebel. We need a new approach. And we're that approach, Eric said. You're proof that the system can evolve. The Inquisitor who fell in love with the heretic who tamed the hammer. It's a beautiful story. People will eat it up. We're not your propaganda. No, you're my weapons. Mira stepped closer. Help me rebuild the Inquisition, make it something better, something that doesn't rely on fear and fire. And if we refuse? Lyra asked. Mira's smile faded. Then I execute you both, she said. Publicly, painfully. And I burn every village that ever sheltered you as a warning. Eric's felt his world narrow to a single point. To the woman in front of him. The woman who'd helped him escape. The woman who'd been playing them from the start. You're a liar, he said. I'm a survivor, Mira corrected. Just like you. I'm nothing like you. No? Mira tilted her head. You burned 73 people, Eric's. 73. You followed orders without question. You crushed resistance without mercy. The only difference between us is that I'm honest about what I am. I changed. You ran. That's not change. That's cowardice. Eric's hand moved toward the sword at the guard's belt. The guard stepped back, blade raised. Don't, Mira said. Her voice was flat, final. You can't win this fight. Then we die fighting. And for what? Pride? Principle? A woman you barely know? For the truth, Mira laughed, short, sharp, cruel. The truth, she said, is that the Empire doesn't care about innocence or guilt. It cares about control. And right now, I'm offering you a chance to have some of that control, to shape the system instead of being crushed by it. By becoming you. By becoming necessary. Eric's looked at Lyra. She was staring at Mira with an expression he'd never seen before. Not fear, not anger. Calculation. What would this partnership look like? Lyra asked. Eric's stomach dropped. Lyra, I want to hear it, she said, not looking at him. Eyes locked on Mira. Mira's smile returned. You train healers, she said, under Imperial supervision. Teach them to use their magic within the law. In return, magic becomes regulated instead of outlawed. And Eric's? He becomes my second, helps me reform the Inquisition from the inside. So we become part of the system we were running from. You become part of the solution. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Eric's, and something in her eyes made his blood run cold. What if we said yes? She asked. Lyra, no. What if we worked with her, changed things from the inside? She's lying. This is all a trap. Maybe, Lyra said, or maybe it's the only way to actually make a difference. Eric's felt the ground crumble beneath him. You can't be serious. I'm tired of running, Eric's. I'm tired of hiding. If there's a chance, any chance, to change the system instead of just fighting it, there's no chance. She's using us. Everyone's using everyone, Lyra's voice cracked. At least this way we get something out of it. We get chains. We get influence. We get corrupted. We get to save lives. The words hung in the air like smoke. Eric stared at her, at the woman he'd risked everything for, the woman who was considering selling out. You're scared, he said quietly. Yes, I'm terrified. So you're going to surrender. I'm going to survive. Lyra stepped toward him.
I spent my whole life healing people in secret, hiding who I was, living in fear. Maybe Mira's offer is a lie. Maybe it's a trap. But maybe it's also the only way to stop hiding. This isn't you. You don't know who I am. Her voice was hard. You've known me for 2 weeks, Erix. 2 weeks. Don't pretend you understand me. The words hit like a blade. Erix felt something inside him crack. I gave up everything for you, he said. I know. I burned my life to the ground. I know. And now you're going to side with them? Lyra's face twisted. Pain and anger and something worse, guilt. I'm trying to stay alive, she said. And if that means compromising, then yes, I'll compromise. Mira watched the exchange with the calm interest of a scientist observing an experiment. This is touching, she said, but I need an answer. Lyra turned to her, saying, I need time. You have 30 seconds. That's not 30 seconds or I execute you both right here. Lyra looked at Erix. He looked back and saw nothing he recognized. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then she turned to Mira. I'll do it, she said. I'll work for you. Erix felt the world go silent, felt everything he'd fought for, everything he'd believed in, everything he'd sacrificed, turned to ash. Lyra, I'm sorry, Erix, but I can't die for a principle. So you'll live as a slave. I'll live. Her voice broke. That's more than most people get. Mira smiled, looked at Erix. And you? She asked. Erix stared at Lyra, at the woman who'd challenged him, changed him, made him believe there was something worth fighting for, the woman who was giving up. No, he said. Mira raised an eyebrow. No? I won't work for you. I won't be your puppet. I won't compromise. Then you'll die. Then I'll die. Lyra grabbed his arm. Erix, please. He pulled away. You made your choice. I'm making mine. This is insane. This is the only thing that makes sense. He looked at Mira. Do it. Execute me. But do it alone. Don't make her watch. Mira studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded to the guards. Take him to the courtyard, she said. Prepare the pyre. The guards moved forward. Erix didn't resist, just walked between them, head high, back straight, like a man going to his death with dignity intact. Behind him, he heard Lyra's voice, broken, desperate. Erix, please! He didn't look back, couldn't look back. If he did, he'd break. And he'd already broken enough. They chained him to the post in the center of the courtyard, the same courtyard where he'd stood in the rain a lifetime ago, the same courtyard where 73 others had died before him. Now it was his turn. Ironic, fitting, almost funny. The pyre was already built, stacked high with wood and kindling, oil-soaked rags stuffed between the logs. They'd burn him fast. That was something. Mira stood at the edge of the courtyard, watching. Lyra stood beside her, face pale, hands shaking. Erix met her eyes. She looked away. A priest stepped forward, started reading the charges: treason, assault, conspiracy, heresy. All true, all worth it. The priest finished, stepped back. A guard approached with a torch. Erix closed his eyes, thought about his father, about the woman in the village, about 73 people who'd stood where he was standing and begged for mercy. He didn't beg, just waited. The guard raised the torch, and Lyra screamed, "Stop!" Erix's eyes snapped open. Lyra was running, pushing past Mira, stumbling toward the pyre. "Don't do this," she shouted. "Please, don't." Mira grabbed her, pulled her back. "You made your choice," she said. "I was wrong." Lyra struggled. "I was scared. Please, don't kill him. It's too late." No, it's not. I'll do anything. You already agreed to work for me. Then let him go. Exile him. Just don't. He refused my offer, Mira said. That means he dies. Lyra's face crumpled. She looked at Erix, and he saw it. The moment she understood. The moment she realized what she'd done. What she'd lost. I'm sorry, she whispered. Erix managed a smile. Small, sad. I know, he said. Mira nodded to the guard. The guard touched the torch to the kindling. Fire bloomed. Heat washed over Erix in waves. He felt the smoke fill his lungs, felt the flames lick at his feet, felt the pain start to build.
And through it all, he kept his eyes on Lyra, on the woman who'd saved him and destroyed him, the woman he'd die for. Even now, even after everything. The flames climbed higher, the world started to blur, and Eric's heard Lyra's voice one last time, screaming his name, screaming for forgiveness, screaming for a miracle she didn't deserve. The flames reached Eric's knees. Pain exploded through his body, white hot, searing, absolute. Every nerve screamed, his skin blistered, the smoke choked him, filled his lungs with poison. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only burn. And then, light, not fire, something else. Gold. Brilliant. Blinding. It poured from somewhere behind him, cascading over the pyre like water, smothering the flames in a wave of pure energy. The fire died. Just stopped. Eric's collapsed against the chains, gasping, his legs a mass of charred flesh in agony. Through the smoke, he saw her. Lyra. But not the Lyra he knew. This Lyra was incandescent. Light blazed from her hands, from her eyes, from every inch of her skin. Her hair whipped around her face like she stood in a gale, even though the air was perfectly still. And the look on her face, rage, pure, primal, absolute. She'd broken free from Mira, was standing in the center of the courtyard, and the light pouring from her was so bright that guards were stumbling back, shielding their eyes. "No more!" Her voice rang out like thunder. "No more burning! No more killing! No more!" Mira stepped forward, hand raised. "Stand down, Lyra. You agreed." "I agreed to nothing." Lyra thrust her hands forward. The golden light surged. It hit Mira like a physical force, sent her flying backward into the stone wall. She hit hard, slumped, didn't move. The guards drew their swords. "Put them down," Lyra said. Her voice was ice. "Or I'll put you down." "You're one woman," a guard said. "We're 20. Then die together." She moved. Not walked. Moved. Like a force of nature. The first guard swung his sword. Lyra caught his wrist, and golden light poured into him. He screamed, dropped the blade, collapsed. Not dead, but not fighting. The second guard lunged. Lyra spun, slammed her palm into his chest. He flew backward, crashed into two others. All three went down in a tangle. The rest hesitated. Smart. Lyra turned to the pyre, to Eric's. The light in her eyes softened just slightly. "Hold on," she said. She placed her hands on the chains. They glowed white-hot for a second, then shattered. Eric's fell. Lyra caught him, lowered him to the ground. "Can you stand?" she asked. He looked down at his legs, at the blackened skin, the raw meat underneath. "Not even a little bit," he gasped. "Then this is going to hurt." She placed her hands on his burns, and Eric's felt agony like he'd never known. It was like being set on fire all over again, except this time the fire was inside him, rewriting every nerve, every cell, every molecule of damaged flesh. He screamed. Couldn't help it. Screamed until his throat was raw and his vision went black at the edges. And then, relief. The pain faded. Eric's looked down. His legs were whole, pink, new, like they'd never been touched by flame. He stared at Lyra. She was pale, shaking, blood dripped from her nose. How did you? Later. She hauled him to his feet. "Can you run?" He tested his weight. His legs held. "Yeah." "Then run." They ran, out of the courtyard, through the halls. Guards shouted behind them but didn't follow. Too smart or too scared, Eric's didn't know which, didn't care. They burst through a side door into the lower corridors. Lyra led the way, moving like she knew the citadel by heart. "Where are we going?" Eric's panted. "The armory." "Why?" "Because if we're going to fight, we need weapons." "Fight? Fight who?" Lyra glanced back at him. Her eyes still glowed faintly. "Everyone." The armory was on the third level, behind a reinforced door. Lyra placed her hand on the lock. Golden light flared. The mechanism melted. The door swung open. Inside, racks of swords, spears, crossbows, and armor lined the walls, enough to outfit a small army. Eric's grabbed a blade, tested the weight. Good steel, sharp edge, felt right in his hand. "Lyra," he said, "what the hell just happened back there?" She was strapping on leather armor, Didn't look at him. I stopped lying to myself. You nearly killed Mira. I should have killed Mira. You said you'd work with her. I said what I had to say to keep us both alive long enough to figure something out. She finally looked at him. I was never going to let you burn. Eric's felt something tight in his chest loosen just slightly. You were going to betray her from the start. I was going to survive. There's a difference. Lyra pulled a short blade from the rack, tucked it into her belt. But when I saw you on that pyre, when I saw them light the fire, she stopped, breathed. I realized I'd rather die fighting than live kneeling. So what's the plan? We take the Citadel. Eric stared at her. That's insane. You have a better idea? Literally any other idea would be better. We can't run. They'll hunt us forever. We can't hide. They'll find us. And we sure as hell can't negotiate. Lyra strapped a quiver of bolts across her back. So we fight. We take this place. We turn it into something that doesn't burn people alive. It's a fortress, Lyra, with a garrison of 200 soldiers. Then we'll need help. From who? She smiled, fierce, dangerous. From everyone they've ever hurt. They moved through the Citadel like ghosts, not hiding, hunting. Eric's knew every corridor, every stairwell, every weak point in the fortress. He'd spent months here, had memorized the guard rotations, the patrol routes, the places where the walls were thinnest. Now he used all of it. They hit the holding cells first. 20 prisoners, men and women accused of everything from theft to heresy to treason. Eric's opened the doors. You're free, he said. But if you want to stay free, you fight. Most ran. 5 stayed. A woman with burn scars on her arms. A man missing 2 fingers. A kid who couldn't have been more than 17. They looked at Eric's with a mix of hope and hate. You're the hammer, the woman said. I was. You burned my brother. I know. She stared at him for a long moment, then picked up a spear from the guard she'd knocked unconscious. Good, she said. Then you owe me. They moved to the servants' quarters next. Found 30 men and women who'd spent years cleaning, cooking, and serving the Inquisitors without question. Lyra stood in the center of the room. You know what happens here, she said. Her voice carried, clear, strong. You've seen the burnings, the torture, the executions. You've cleaned the blood off the floors and pretended it was normal. Silence. No one met her eyes. I'm not asking you to fight, Lyra continued. I'm asking you to stop enabling, stop cleaning up their messes, stop making it easy for them to kill. A man in the back spoke up, old, gray-haired, tired. And what do we do instead? You lock the doors, you bar the gates, you make sure no one gets in or out until this is over. They'll execute us. They'll execute you anyway, Lyra's eyes blazed. The only question is whether you die kneeling or standing. The old man looked around the room, at the faces of people who'd spent lifetimes serving monsters. Then he nodded. All right, he said. We'll do it. One by one, the others nodded too. Lyra turned to Eric's. How many soldiers in the garrison? 200, maybe 250. And we have what, 40 people? Closer to 30 if you don't count the ones who can barely hold a weapon. Then we need an advantage. I'm open to suggestions. Lyra thought for a moment. Then her face changed. The prison blocks, she said. How many cells are full? Maybe 100. Why? Because we're not the only ones who want revenge. They hit the main prison level at midnight. 73 cells, 62 prisoners, thieves, smugglers, dissenters. People who'd crossed the Empire and survived long enough to be locked away. Eric stood in front of the cells and raised his voice. I'm Eric's Vane, he said. Former Inquisitor. I've burned people like you, tortured you, locked you in these cages and thrown away the key. Faces appeared in the darkness. Hard, hungry, hateful. I was wrong, Eric said. Everything I did, everything I believed, it was wrong. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. He pulled the keys from his belt. But I'm giving you a choice, he said. You can stay here and rot, or you can fight. Help us take this citadel. Turn it into something that doesn't cage and kill people for being human. And if we win,
a voice called from the darkness. Then you're free. All of you. And if we lose, then we die together. Eric's held up the keys. I'm opening these doors. What you do after that is up to you. He started unlocking cells. One by one, prisoners stepped out, blinking in the torchlight, testing their legs, staring at freedom like they'd forgotten what it looked like. Some ran. Most stayed. By the time Eric's finished, he had 80 people standing in the corridor, 80 broken, angry, desperate people who had nothing left to lose. Lyra stepped forward. The garrison outnumbers us 3-1, she said. They have training, armor, discipline. We have rage, and sometimes that's enough. She raised her hand. Golden light flickered around her fingers. I'm not asking you to die, she said. I'm asking you to fight. Fight for every person they've killed. Fight for every family they've destroyed. Fight for the right to exist without fear. A woman in the front spoke, young, scarred. What's the target? The Great Hall, Lyra said. That's where Mira will be. That's where the senior inquisitors gather. We hit them there. We cut the head off the snake. And the garrison? We make sure they're too busy to help. Lyra turned to the old servant who'd agreed to help. You said you'd lock the doors, she said. Do it now. Seal the barracks. Trap as many soldiers as you can inside. The old man nodded, disappeared into the shadows with a dozen others. Lyra looked at the prisoners. The rest of you, with me. They moved. Not an army, a mob. Angry, chaotic, desperate, but moving with purpose. They flooded through the citadel like a wave, overwhelming guards, seizing weapons, setting fires in strategic locations to create confusion. Eric's fought beside them, sword in hand, instincts honed by years of training. But this time, he wasn't fighting for the Empire. He was fighting against it. A guard came at him, young, terrified. Eric's disarmed him. Didn't kill him. Run, he said. The guard ran. Not all of them were monsters, just most. They reached the Great Hall 20 minutes later. The massive double doors stood closed, barred from the inside. Lyra placed her hand on the wood. Step back, she said. Light gathered in her palm, brighter than before, hotter. She released it. The doors exploded inward. Smoke and splinters filled the air. When it cleared, Eric saw the hall. 50 inquisitors, senior officers, the heart of the Empire's judgment machine. And at the center, sitting on a raised platform, was Mira Cade. She looked at Lyra, at Eric's, at the mob behind them, and smiled. I was hoping you'd come, she said. Lyra stepped into the hall. This ends now. Does it? Mira stood. You think a mob of criminals and a fallen inquisitor can take the Citadel? You're delusional. We already have. You've taken corridors, cells, empty rooms. Mira gestured to the inquisitors around her. You haven't taken anything that matters. Then let's change that. Lyra raised her hands. Golden light blazed. And the inquisitors moved, not to fight, to flee. Half of them bolted for the side exits. The other half drew weapons but hesitated, looking at each other, at Mira, uncertain. Mira's face went dark. Stand and fight, she shouted. Why? One of them called back. So we can die for your ambition? You swore an oath. We swore to serve the Empire, not you. The Inquisitor threw down his sword, walked out, 3 others followed, then 5 more. Within seconds, only a dozen remained. Mira stared at the empty hall, at the people who'd abandoned her. Then she looked at Lyra. You've turned them, she said. Quiet, dangerous. I showed them the truth. You showed them weakness. I showed them a choice. Mira drew her blades. Twin short swords, dark steel, edges gleaming. Then let's see what your choice is worth. She moved, fast, impossibly fast. Eric's barely saw her cross the distance, barely had time to raise his sword. Steel clashed. The impact jarred his arm to the shoulder. Mira was strong, trained, lethal. She spun, slashed at his ribs. He blocked, countered. She parried, stepped inside his guard, drove a knee into his stomach. Air exploded from his lungs. He staggered back. Mira followed. Relentless. Blade high, blade low, a pattern of death he couldn't keep up with. He was good. She was better.
A slash opened his shoulder, another caught his thigh. Blood poured. Eric's went down on one knee. Mira raised her sword for the killing blow, and Lyra hit her with a wall of light. Mira flew backward, crashed into the platform, rolled to her feet. Blood dripped from her mouth. She spat, smiled.
There it is, she said.
The monster. Lyra stepped forward. Light blazed around her like armor.
I'm not a monster, she said. I'm what you made me. I didn't make you anything. You were always this. You just needed an excuse. The only excuse I need, Lyra said, is you. She attacked.
Not with a weapon. With everything. Light poured from her hands in waves. Not healing light. Not gentle. Destruction. It tore through the stone floor, shattered pillars, turned the air itself into fire. Mira dodged, rolled, came up swinging. Her blade cut through the light, dispersed it. She closed the distance, drove a punch into Lyra's ribs, followed with a slash that opened Lyra's arm. Lyra screamed, not in pain, in rage. She grabbed Mira's wrist. Light blazed between them. Mira's skin blistered, smoked. She headbutted Lyra. Once, twice. Lyra's nose broke. Blood sprayed. They broke apart, circled, both bleeding, both panting, both refusing to stop. You can't win this, Mira said. Watch me. Lyra raised her hands, and this time the light didn't just pour out. It exploded. A sphere of pure energy expanded from her body, engulfed the hall, consumed everything in its path. Erix threw himself behind a pillar. The light washed over him, warm, bright, blinding. When it faded, he looked up. The hall was ruins, pillars shattered, floor cracked, walls scorched black. Lyra stood in the center, swaying, blood dripping from her nose, her mouth, her ears. Mira was on the ground, not moving. Lyra took a step toward her, collapsed. Erix scrambled to his feet, ran to her side. Lyra. She looked up at him, smiled weakly. Did we win? Erix looked around. The Inquisitors who'd stayed to fight were gone. Dead or fled, he didn't know. The mob behind them was cheering, and through the shattered walls he could see the citadel, burning. Not with execution fires. With rebellion. Yeah, he said. We won. Lyra closed her eyes. Good. Then she passed out. Erix caught her, held her, and for the first time in his life, he let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, they'd actually done it. The next 3 days were chaos. The garrison surrendered. Some fled. Most just laid down their weapons and waited to see what would happen. The prisoners took over the administrative quarters, started sorting through files, releasing records, exposing decades of corruption and cruelty. The servants opened the gates. Let the people in. And they came. Hundreds of them. Thousands. People from villages the Empire had burned. Families the Inquisitors had destroyed. Victims who'd never had a voice. Now they had a platform. Erix stood on the walls, watching the crowd below. Lyra stood beside him, pale, weak, but alive. They're calling you a hero, she said. I'm not a hero. You freed them. I helped cage them first. And now you're making it right. She leaned against him. That counts for something. Erix didn't answer, just watched the people. His people now, whether he wanted them or not. A messenger approached. Young woman, nervous. Sir, she said. There's a problem. Erix turned. What kind of problem? The capital. They've sent a response. Already? The messenger handed him a letter. Erix broke the seal, read, and felt his blood turn to ice. What is it? Lyra asked. Erix looked at her. They're sending an army, he said. 5,000 soldiers, led by the Grand Marshal himself. When? They'll be here in 3 days. Silence. Lyra stared at him, at the letter, at the crowd below. Then we have 3 days to get ready, she said. We can't fight 5,000 soldiers with a mob. Then we turn the mob into an army. That's impossible. So was this. Lyra gestured to the citadel, to the people, to everything they'd built from blood and fire. We've done impossible before. We'll do it again. Erix looked at her, at the woman who'd refused to break, who'd burned down the system and built something new from the ashes. At the woman he'd die for. All right, he said. 3 days. 3 days. They turned to face the crowd, and Erix raised his voice. Listen to me, he shouted. The crowd quieted. The Empire is coming, he called. 5,000 soldiers, 3 days. They're going to try to take this place back. Try to put us back in chains. Try to burn us for daring to be free. Silence, tense, waiting. But we're not going back, Eric's voice rang out. We're not kneeling. We're not burning. We are going to stand here and we are going to fight, and we are going to show the Empire that fear doesn't work anymore. The crowd erupted, cheering, shouting, roaring. Lyra took his hand. You're good at this, she said. I've had practice. At what? Lying to myself. He looked at her. But not anymore. She smiled. And together they walked back into the citadel to prepare for the war that would decide everything. 3 days wasn't enough time to build an army, but it was enough time to build something that looked like one. Eric stood in the courtyard, the same courtyard where he'd almost burned, and watched farmers learn to hold spears, watched servants practice formations, watched children barely old enough to shave strap-on armor 3 sizes too big. It should have filled him with hope. Instead, it filled him with dread. These weren't soldiers. They were people. Scared, angry, desperate people who'd never held a weapon in their lives and were now expected to stand against the Empire's finest. They were going to die. Most of them. Maybe all of them. Lyra appeared at his shoulder. She'd been working non-stop for 3 days, healing injuries, organizing supplies, rallying spirits. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hands trembled when she thought no one was looking. How many do we have? Eric's asked. 843, she said. Give or take. Against 5,000. Bad odds. Suicide odds. Lyra was quiet for a moment, then, you could leave. Take whoever wants to come. Disappear into the mountains before they arrive. And abandon everyone else? You've done it before. The words hung between them. Not accusatory, just true. Eric's turned to face her. I'm not that man anymore. I know. She touched his arm. But you don't owe these people your life. Yes, I do. He looked back at the courtyard, at the woman with burn scars teaching a boy how to block, at the old servant sharpening blades with steady hands, at every face that had chosen to stand instead of run. I owe them 73 lives. This is me starting to pay it back. Lyra didn't argue, just stood beside him and watched the sun set over a fortress preparing for slaughter. The army arrived at dawn on the 4th day. Eric stood on the walls and watched them come. 5,000 soldiers, maybe more. They filled the valley like a dark tide, armor gleaming, banners snapping in the wind, the imperial seal, sword and flame, visible on every shield. At the head of the column rode a man in black plate armor, Grand Marshal Theron Voss. The Empire's greatest military mind, a man who'd crushed 17 rebellions and never lost a battle. He was here to make it 18. The army stopped 100 yards from the gates, formed up in perfect lines, waited. A single rider broke from the formation, approached the walls under a white flag. Eric's recognized him immediately. Commander Jarek Hale, one of the few Inquisitors who'd fled instead of surrendering. Tall, blonde, smug. He stopped below the gates and called up. Eric's Vane! The Empire offers terms! Eric's didn't move, just stared down at him. Surrender the Citadel, Jarek shouted. Turn over the heretic Lyra Vale and all those who aided in this rebellion. The Grand Marshal promises swift justice. Justice, Eric's called back. That's a funny word coming from you people. This is your last chance. Surrender or be destroyed. Eric's looked at Lyra. She stood beside him, face pale but steady. What do you think? He asked quietly. I think they're going to kill us either way, she said. At least this way we get to choose how we die. Eric's turned back to Jarek. Tell the Grand Marshal, he called, that Blackthorn Citadel is no longer a prison. It's free ground, and we don't surrender to tyrants. Jarek's face went dark. You're condemning everyone inside those walls to death. We're choosing to stand. There's a difference. There's no difference. You're all going to burn. Then we burn, Eric's voice rang out across the valley. But we burn free. Behind him, the people on the walls erupted in cheers. Not because they wanted to die, because for the first time in their lives, they had something worth dying for. Jarek wheeled his horse around, rode back to the army. Eric's turned to face the crowd. "They're coming," he said, "and they're not going to show mercy. If anyone wants to leave, now's the time. Open the back gates. Let them go." No one moved, not a single person. Eric's felt something break in his chest, something that had been frozen for so long he'd forgotten it was there. Pride. "Then we fight," he said, and the gates slammed shut. The first assault came an hour later, battering rams, siege ladders, a wave of soldiers crashing against the walls like the ocean. Eric stood at the eastern gate, sword in hand, and watched them come. "Hold!" he shouted. "Wait for my signal." The soldiers reached the walls, started climbing. "Now!" Boiling oil poured from above. Men screamed, fell, crashed into the ones below. Arrows rained down. Not professional volleys, desperate, ragged shots, but enough to slow them. The first ladder reached the top. A soldier pulled himself over. Eric's met him with a blade through the throat. The man fell. Another climbed up. Then another. Eric's fought like he'd been born to it. Muscle memory from years of training. Every movement precise, economical, lethal, but they kept coming. For every one he killed, 3 more took their place. Down the wall, he heard screaming, saw a section overrun, saw farmers with spears trying to hold back trained soldiers. They were losing. Then light blazed, golden, brilliant, devastating. Lyra stood in the courtyard below, hands raised, and the light poured from her in waves. It didn't kill. It healed. Every wound closed, every broken bone mended, every dying man pulled back from the edge. The defenders rallied, pushed back, threw the soldiers off the walls. The assault broke. The army retreated. Eric's looked down at Lyra. She was on her knees, blood streaming from her nose, shaking so hard she could barely stand. He climbed down, helped her up. "You can't keep doing that," he said. "Watch me. You're going to kill yourself." "Better me than them." Eric's opened his mouth to argue. An explosion cut him off. The eastern wall erupted in flames and smoke. Stone and bodies flew through the air. Siege engines. The Empire had brought siege engines. "Fall back!" Eric shouted. "Get away from the wall!" Another explosion. The gates buckled. A third. The wall cracked. And then it fell. A whole section of the eastern wall collapsed inward, crushing defenders, opening a gap 30 feet wide. Soldiers poured through. Eric's grabbed Lyra. "We need to get you out of here." "No, I can still." "You can barely stand. If they capture you, then they capture me." She pulled away from him. "I'm not running." "Lyra, I said I'm not running." She raised her hands. Light blazed. But this time it was different. Not healing, not gentle. A spear of pure energy lanced out from her palms, hit the lid soldier, exploded. The man disintegrated. The soldiers behind him went down screaming. Lyra didn't stop, couldn't stop. The light poured out of her in torrents, burning, destroying, killing, everything she'd sworn never to do, everything she'd hated the Empire for. She was doing it now, and she was good at it. Eric's watched in horror as she carved through the soldiers like they were made of paper. Watched her face twist into something he didn't recognize. Watched her become the monster the Empire had always said she was. "Lyra, stop!" She didn't hear him, or didn't care, just kept killing. Eric's ran to her, grabbed her arms. The light burned his hands. He held on anyway. "Stop," he shouted in her face. "You're going to kill yourself." "Good!" "No!" He shook her, hard. "Not good. Not like this. Not for them." Lyra stared at him, eyes wild, unfocused. Then the light faded. She collapsed into his arms. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm—" "Shh. It's okay. I killed them. I swore I'd never— And I know. I'm just like them." "No." Eric's held her tight. "You're nothing like them. You're just human." Around them, the battle raged. People screamed, died, fought like animals because they had no other choice. This was what the Empire did. Turned good people into killers, turned mercy into a weapon, turned everything beautiful into something that burned. Eric's looked up. Through the gap in the wall, he could see the Grand Marshal, sitting on his horse, watching, waiting. And Eric's realized something. They couldn't win this fight, not with strength, Not with magic, not with rage. The Empire was too big, too strong, too certain of its own righteousness. The only way to beat it was to change the game. He looked down at Lyra. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "Then come with me." They made their way to the main gate. The fighting was heaviest here. Bodies piled 3 deep. Blood made the stones slick. Eryx climbed the stairs to the top of the gatehouse. Lyra behind him. Below, the army waited. Above, on the walls, the defenders held on by sheer stubborn will. Eryx raised his voice. "Grand Marshal Voss!" The battlefield went quiet. Not silent, just quieter. The Grand Marshal urged his horse forward, stopped below the gate. "Eryx Vane!" he called up. His voice was cold, hard. "Have you come to surrender?" "No," Eryx said. "I've come to make you an offer." Voss raised an eyebrow. "I don't negotiate with traitors." "Then don't negotiate, just listen." Eryx stepped to the edge of the wall. "You want Lyra Vale. You want the heretic who started all this. I'll give her to you." Lyra grabbed his arm. "What are you—" "In exchange," Eryx continued, "you let everyone else go. No reprisals, no executions, no burnings. They walk away free." "Eryx, no. 1 life for 800, Eryx said. "That's a good deal, Marshal. Even for the Empire." Voss considered. "And you?" "Me too. You can have me too. The traitor Inquisitor and the heretic healer. That's what you really want, isn't it? The symbols, the examples." "Eryx, stop. Do we have a deal?" Voss smiled, cold, cruel. "No," he said. Eryx felt his stomach drop. "What?" "I said no." Voss gestured to the army behind him. "I don't need to make deals. I have 5,000 soldiers. You have corpses. I'll take the citadel. I'll execute the heretic. I'll execute you. And then I'll execute everyone who stood with you, because that's what happens to traitors." "They're not traitors. They're victims. They're criminals. And they'll burn for it." Eryx stared down at him, at the face of the Empire, at everything he'd spent his life serving, and he realized there was no reasoning with it, no negotiating, no mercy, just fire. "Then you'll have to kill us all," Eryx said quietly. "I intend to." Voss raised his hand. The army surged forward. Eryx turned to Lyra. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For thinking we could change them." She smiled, sad, tired, beautiful. "We did change them," she said. "Just not the way we hoped." She took his hand, and together they turned to face the army. The final assault lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of blood and screaming and desperate, futile resistance. The defenders fought like demons, held every inch, made the Empire pay for every step. But it wasn't enough. One by one, the walls fell. One by one, the gates broke. One by one, the people Eryx had promised to protect died in front of him. He fought until his arms went numb, until his sword broke, until he was covered in so much blood he couldn't tell what was his and what wasn't. Lyra fought beside him. Not with magic anymore. She'd used it all. Burned herself out, healing, killing, trying to do the impossible. Now she just had a knife and rage and love. They made their last stand in the courtyard, back to back, surrounded, bleeding. 50 soldiers closed in. "This is it," Lyra said. "Yeah." "Any regrets?" Eryx thought about it. About 73 people he'd burned. About a father he'd watched die. About a lifetime of certainty that had crumbled in 2 weeks. "Just one," he said. "What?" "That I didn't meet you sooner." She laughed, sharp, breathless. "That's the worst last word I've ever heard." "You have a better one?" "Yeah." She turned her head, kissed him, quick, fierce. "I love you." The soldiers attacked. Eryx raised his broken sword, and then light. But not from Lyra. From everywhere. From the walls, from the ground, from the air itself. Golden, blinding, overwhelming. Eryx felt it wash over him. Warm, gentle, safe. The soldiers stopped. Looked around in confusion. The light grew brighter, and then a voice spoke. Not out loud. Inside his head. Calm. Ancient. Infinite. Enough. The soldiers fell. Not dead, just asleep. All of them. The entire army. 5,000 men, down in an instant. Eryx stared.
What the hell?
The light coalesced, took shape. A woman. Old. Ancient. Her face lined with centuries, her eyes the same gray as Lyra's. She looked at Lyra and smiled. "Hello, child." Lyra's eyes went wide. "Grandmother?" "Not quite." The woman stepped forward. "But close enough. I'm what remains. The old magic. The first healing. The thing the Empire tried to burn out of the world. You're dead. Cadmus killed you, miss." "He killed the body," the woman said. "But magic doesn't die. It just waits and watches. And when the time is right, it acts." She looked at Eryx. "You've done well," she said. "Both of you. You've reminded the world what it forgot. That mercy is not weakness. That healing is not a crime. That people are worth saving." "We didn't save anyone," Eryx said. His voice was hollow. "They're all dead." "Not all," the woman gestured. Eryx looked around. The defenders who'd fallen, the ones he'd thought were dead, they were moving, sitting up, wounds closing, not dead, sleeping, healing. "How?" "The old magic," the woman said. "The kind that doesn't destroy, the kind that restores. It's been here all along. You just had to believe it was possible." She turned back to Lyra. "You have a choice, child," she said. "The magic I carry, the healing, the light, all of it, I can give it to you. Make you what I was. A living conduit. Power beyond imagining." Lyra's breath caught. But it will consume you, slowly, over years or decades. You'll become less human, more symbol, until there's nothing left of the girl you are now. So I trade my life for power. You trade your humanity for purpose." Lyra looked at Eryx. He looked back. And he knew what she was going to say. "Don't," he said. Please don't." "I have to." "No, you don't. We can find another way." "There is no other way." She touched his face. "The Empire will keep coming, keep burning, keep killing, unless someone stops them, really stops them, and that someone has to be me." "Lyra, I'm not asking for permission, Eryx. I'm telling you what I'm going to do." She turned to the old woman. "I accept." The woman nodded. "Then come." She touched Lyra's forehead, and the light poured in. Eryx watched as Lyra's body blazed, watched her back arch, watched her scream, not in pain, in transformation. When it faded, she was different, not older, not younger, just more. Her eyes glowed, her skin shimmered, power radiated from her like heat from a forge. She looked at Eryx, and he saw it in her eyes. She was already leaving, already becoming something else. "How long?" he asked. "I don't know," she said. Her voice echoed slightly, like it came from far away. "Years, maybe less. And then I'm gone." Eryx felt his throat close. "This isn't fair." "Nothing about this is fair." She took his hands. "But it's necessary. Someone has to stand between the Empire and the people. Someone has to be the shield. And it's going to be me." "I can't lose you." "You're not losing me," she smiled. "You're just sharing me with the world." She kissed him, one last time. Then she stepped back, raised her hands, and the light spread. It washed over the citadel, over the valley, over the sleeping army. Everywhere it touched, wounds healed, hate faded, fear dissolved. The soldiers woke, but they didn't fight. They just stared at the woman made of light, at the miracle they couldn't explain, at proof that magic wasn't evil. It was grace. Grand Marshal Voss rode forward, stopped, stared up at Lyra. "What are you?" he whispered. "I'm the answer," Lyra said. Her voice carried across the valley. "To every question you've been too afraid to ask. I'm proof that healing is stronger than burning, that mercy defeats cruelty, that love outlasts hate." She gestured to the citadel. "This place will never be a prison again," she said. "It's a sanctuary now, for anyone who needs it, anyone who's been hurt by the Empire, anyone who wants to learn a different way. The Empire will never allow—" "The Empire," Lyra said, and her voice hardened, "will do exactly what I tell it to do, or I will burn it to the ground and build something better from the ashes." Voss stared at her, then slowly he dismounted, knelt.
What would you have me do? He asked. Go back to the capital, Lyra said. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them the old ways are ending. Tell them a new age is beginning. And tell them that anyone who stands against it will answer to me. Voss nodded. It will be done. He stood, mounted his horse, rode away. The army followed. Not defeated, changed. When they were gone, Lyra turned to the defenders, to the people who'd fought and bled and nearly died. Thank you, she said simply. Then she turned to Eric's. The light around her faded slightly, just enough that he could see her face, just enough that he could see the sadness in her eyes. I have to go, she said. Where? Everywhere. Nowhere. Wherever I'm needed. She touched his face. I'll come back when I can, but it won't be often, and it won't be for long. So this is it. This is it. Eric's felt tears burn his eyes. I don't know how to do this without you. Yes, you do. She smiled. You've been doing it your whole life. You just forgot for a while. Now you remember. Remember what? How to be human. She kissed his forehead, and then she was gone. Just light, fading into the dawn. Eric stood alone in the courtyard. Around him, the citadel stirred, people emerging from the rubble, looking around at what they'd built, what they'd saved, what they'd become. The woman with burn scars approached, the one who'd lost her brother. What now? She asked. Eric's looked at her, at the question in her eyes, and he realized he didn't have an answer. For the first time in his life, he didn't have orders, didn't have a mission, didn't have certainty. All he had was a choice. Now, he said slowly, we rebuild. We turn this place into what Lyra promised, a sanctuary, a place where people don't have to be afraid. And the Empire? The Empire is changing, whether it wants to or not. He looked up at the sky, at the fading light. We'll help it along, one day at a time. The woman nodded, smiled. All right then, she said, let's get to work. Weeks passed, then months. Blackthorn Citadel transformed. The cells became rooms, the torture chambers became healing halls. The courtyard where Eric's had almost burned became a garden where children played. People came from across the Empire, not to be judged, to be helped, and Eric's led them. Not as an inquisitor, as a man who'd made mistakes and was trying to make them right. It was slow, difficult. Some days he wanted to quit, wanted to walk away from the weight of it all, but he didn't, because Lyra had asked him to carry it, and he'd carry it until he couldn't anymore. She came back once. 3 months after the battle, just for a night. She was more light than flesh by then, barely solid, her eyes distant. But she was still her. They sat on the walls together, watched the sunset, didn't talk much, didn't need to. Are you happy? She asked finally. Eric's thought about it. I'm not sure I remember what happy feels like, he said, but I'm not empty anymore. That's something. It's everything. Will you come back again? She was quiet for a long time. I don't know, she said. I'm spreading thin, becoming more magic and less Lyra. Eventually there won't be enough of me left to come back. How long? A year, maybe. Maybe less. Eric's felt his chest tighten. I wish we had more time. We have now, she said. That's more than most people get. She leaned against him, and for one perfect moment, they were just two people watching the sunset. Not a living legend and a fallen inquisitor. Just Lyra and Eric's. Just human. When dawn came, she was gone. Eric sat alone on the wall and watched the sun rise over the citadel, over the sanctuary they'd built from blood and fire and impossible choices, over proof that mercy could defeat cruelty, that healing could outlast burning, that love, stubborn, foolish, desperate love, could change the world. He stood, walked back down into the courtyard, back to the work, back to the life he'd chosen. And as he crossed the threshold, he heard her voice, faint, distant, like a whisper on the wind. Thank you. Eric smiled. Thank you, he said to the empty air, and got back to work. Years passed. Blackthorn became a symbol, not of judgment, but of hope. The Empire changed, slowly, painfully, but it changed,
Magic was no longer outlawed, just regulated. Healers could practice openly. People could live without fear. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. And better was enough. Eryx grew old in the Citadel, watched generations pass through, helped them heal, helped them grow, helped them believe that the world could be different than it was. He never married, never had children, but he wasn't alone. The people were his family, the sanctuary was his home. And somewhere, in the light that poured through the windows every morning, he felt her. Lyra. Not gone, just transformed, become something larger than herself, something eternal. The thing the Empire had tried to burn, the thing that refused to die. On his last day, when age and time finally caught up with him, Eryx lay in the same chamber where he'd first met her, where everything had started. A young healer sat beside him, holding his hand. "Are you afraid?" she asked. Eryx looked up at the ceiling, at the light streaming through the cracks in the stone. "No," he said. "I'm ready." "For what?" He smiled. To see her again. The light grew brighter, warm, welcoming, familiar. And in it, he saw her face. Not distant, not fading, whole. She reached out her hand, Eryx took it, and together they walked into the light. Not as Inquisitor and heretic, not as legend and symbol, just as two souls who'd chosen mercy over cruelty, love over hate, life over ash. And somewhere, in a courtyard where children played and flowers grew, where pyres once burned, the wind carried their story. A reminder, a promise, that no fire burns forever, but kindness, stubborn, relentless, impossible kindness, that lasts. The end. And that's the story of the Inquisitor who chose the witch, the hammer who broke himself to build something better, the man who learned that mercy isn't weakness, it's the hardest strength there is. Thank you for staying until the end. Drop a like if this story moved you. Tell us in the comments what city you watched from. And remember, we all have a choice between burning and healing, between cruelty and kindness, between what's easy and what's right. Choose well.